Good afternoon. In today's class, we will commence a new chapter. So let me do a quick recap of different chapters, what you have studied so far. So we began this semester with the third head of income, that is profit and gains from business and profession. Followed by this, you have learned how to compute income under the head capital gains. Followed by capital gains, we have the last and the residual head of income titled as income from other sources. So by now you have studied all the 5 heads of income, two in the previous semester and 3 in the current semester. Now we have final 2 steps left out. Now, these final 2 steps are the last 2 units of your syllabus. And these 2 chapters are interlinked with each other. The ultimate goal of this entire subject is to prepare you to compute tax liability of an individual. So as a student of this subject, as a student of income tax, you should learn how to compute tax of individuals, and the last part is to file the returns and pay the tax, which is an administrative step that comes under tax administration, payment of taxes. But as a student of income tax, you should be in a position to know how to calculate the tax of individuals. Income tax 1 as well as income tax 2, what you have studied in both these subjects, you have studied taxation pertaining to individuals, also known as personal income tax. We have different categories under the definition of persons, what you have studied in your previous semester, and you're familiar with the definition. You know that person includes an individual, a partnership firm, a Hindu undivided family, a cooperative society, company, both domestic as well as foreign, local authority, and artificial judicial person. Out of all these entities, you have just studied assessment of individuals only. And all those students who have opted accounting and taxation as your elective, you are also studying assessment of companies in the subject called corporate taxation and planning. But in case if you have not opted for this, then you end up studying only personal income tax. So I did mention that these 2 chapters are interconnected. The reason is, after computing gross total income, first of all, you should know what is gross total income. So let me quickly recall what gross total income, the definition of which you had studied in the first chapter of your previous semester. So gross total income here refers to total income earned by the assessee during the previous year from various sources that are classified into different heads. So when you compile all the incomes earned to different sources under different heads, it constitutes gross total income. Now, it's not necessary that every individual should earn from all the heads of income. Some people earn only through one source or one head of income. Some people earn through 2 or 3. Some people have 4, 5, right, heads. Nonetheless, in case if somebody does not have all the 5 heads, let's say an individual is just earning from salary income. What happens now is that all the money what he has earned during the previous year from this head salary itself will become gross total income. So gross total income implies to summation of all the sources of your incomes, which in income tax we put them under different heads. So it's a summary or it's a total of different sources of income what you have earned during the previous year, and there is no compulsion that you should earn from all the 5 heads. If you have only one source of income, that will be classified under one category or one head, and that itself will become your total that will become your gross total income. Now, what's the difference between gross total income and total income? What happens in between? Now, what happens in between is deductions. From gross total income, an individual can claim certain deductions. And let me add one more point, which I think I have missed out. I said, while computing gross total income, what do? We add up all the sources of incomes what you have earned in the previous year under different heads and say this is your gross total income. And after we do that, or during the process of compiling all the sources of income under various heads, we also perform one more step, which is one of the topics in this chapter called set off and carry forward of losses. Set off and carry forward of losses, which is one of the topics in your syllabus in chapter 4, and perhaps a very important topic also, even though it's a small topic, but it's very important from the viewpoint of examination. So you have to also learn set off and carry forward of losses. Now, what exactly do you mean by set off and carry forward of losses? Now, there is a possibility that a person may earn incomes under different heads, and it may happen that a person would have earned from some heads. On the other hand, he would have suffered loss under some other heads. For example, let's say I'm a salaried individual. I work at St. Joseph's College, but let's assume I also do a part-time business in the evening. Okay, so in the evening I do some business also. Let's assume I'm running a cloud kitchen and I've tied up with Swiggy, so I prepare food and deliver the orders through Swiggy. So I'm running a cloud kitchen. So that's my business, which I do in the evenings from 1 p.m. to, let's say, midnight. So from that also I'm earning. So now, on account of pandemic, unfortunately, my sales are terribly hit and I'm not able to generate the kind of income which I used to do. So what has happened is my expenses have become more than what I'm earning. As a result of this, I have suffered loss from business. So is it possible, when I'm calculating my gross total income, in which I have to add up incomes from various sources under different heads, is it possible that can I adjust the loss what I have suffered from business with the income of my salary? Is it possible? Is it possible to do such adjustments? What do you think? So? Can you please give your response in the chat box? Is it possible for me to adjust the loss suffered from business in my salary income? Let's say I'm earning 10 lakh rupees salary per annum, but loss suffered from business is 3 lakhs. So generally what we do when you do gross total income, we add up all the incomes. So salary income plus business income total is called GTI. But in this case, what has happened is salary anyways I've earned, but I've suffered loss from business. So can I adjust the loss of 3 lakhs with my salary income of 10 lakhs? Is it possible? Similarly, due to pandemic, most of the people who own houses and who have given the houses on rent, even those people have suffered losses because most of the tenants could not pay the rent. So is it possible to adjust the loss suffered from house property with business income? Is it possible to adjust the loss of business with income from house property? Is it possible to adjust the loss suffered from short-term capital gain with the profit of long-term capital gain. Is it possible to adjust the loss of one head with the income of other head? Can we do this? So 59 has said you cannot claim, A section 59 has said you cannot claim losses of business with salary. Okay. Now, there are certain provisions which are laid down by the income tax department when it comes to setting of losses, and it also says how long can you carry forward the loss. So I'm not going to discuss set off and carry forward losses. I'll discuss that little later. What I'm discussing at the moment is gross total income. So 59 anyways what you said is correct, but income tax department has made provisions to adjust losses with other heads of income, meaning to say loss of one head of income can be adjusted with income of some other head. Possibility and what are the rules is mentioned under Income Tax Act. So we will discuss which laws can be adjusted with which head of income little later. But the point which I wanted to make you is when we calculate gross total income, I was telling you that we have to summarize incomes earned from different heads, compute the total, and that total is titled as gross total income. So when we do this, the point which I wanted to make was that we can adjust losses also. Losses of one particular head with profit of other heads or income of other heads. So this is what GTI is. Now, once you identify your GTI, next you have to calculate total income. And I was asking you a question, what's the difference between gross total income and total income? Now the answer is simple. GTI is equal to incomes from various sources, total of income from various sources classified under different heads after adjustment of losses. That is GTI. Now what is total income? Total income, let me put this in the form of an equation. Total income is equal to GTI minus deductions. Simple. Total income is equal to GTI or gross total income minus deductions. Now the question that arises is, what deductions? What are those deductions? What can you deduct? Are you allowed to deduct personal expenses? Or are you allowed to deduct whatever expenses you feel is necessary to be adjusted in your GTI? So can you decide what are the deductions can you claim? The answer is no. Income tax department has specifically mentioned in chapter 4A in various sections that commence from 80C ends at 80U. What are the deductions that are permissible? So we can't claim deductions as per our whims and fancies, but we have to follow the provisions of 80C to 80. So 80C to 80U, all the sections that falls between this tells us what can we deduct. So that is what you're about to study in this chapter. This chapter is, I would say it's easy. I mean, for me, like you might think that since I'm a teacher, so I just keep telling everything is easy. It's not like that. I also think from your point of view, from the point of view of the learner. Now, from the point of view of the learner, this chapter may pose certain challenges. The challenges are that there are too many sections for you to remember. 80C, 80 triple C, 80 CCD clause 1, 80 CCD clause 2, 80 D, 80 double D, 80 DDB, 80 TTA, 80 G, 80 GG, 80 GGA, 80 GGC, 80U, right? So I don't want to read the menu of all the deductions and scare you at the moment. I don't want to behave like coronavirus now, right? But I'm just telling you that this chapter you will understand, but it's slightly challenging because you have to remember too many things. And I've already alerted you that this time you might have an online examination. And if it happens, it'll be based on MCQ, most likely, most probably, or part will be in MCQ. And this is the chapter which allows most of the paper setters teachers to take a lot of questions from, because I have ample choice to ask MCQ on various sections. And therefore, I want you people to put in some extra effort and pay attention to all the concepts what we discuss in this chapter. I am trying to make this entire subject as easy as possible, right? So I'm doing that, right? So let us discuss now all these deductions one by one, but let's discuss the rationality behind why the government is giving deductions. Now you might wonder, the whole purpose of levying taxes on the citizens is to create revenue for public expenditure. That's a simple economics what you study in public finance. That's the whole purpose of taxation. The government needs a source of revenue. Now, is taxation the only source of revenue? The answer is it is one of the most, I would say, common channel and most important source of revenue. But there are countries where you don't have taxes also, right? So there are such countries in the world. But of late, even those countries where there was complete absence of taxation has now slowly started implementing taxation for various reasons. Saudi Arabia was one of those countries where we did not have taxation, but unfortunately, on account of slump in the global demand for crude oil, Saudi's economy is severely hit, and the government has recently introduced some taxes. So tax is one of the source to take care of the public expenditure. Now, the objective of implementing taxes is to create revenue. But why is it the government giving deductions? If government gives deduction, obviously government's revenue will be hit. Then why is the government giving deduction? The answer for this question is something what you see on your screen. All right. Even though government wants revenue, but on the other hand, there are certain essential activities that are necessary to ensure that the economy is healthy and progressing well. Now, one of the important activity for an economy to flourish, for an economy to progress, is to encourage savings. Because savings in a country where people don't save creates a lot of issues. Now, ultimately, all that money, what an individual saves, what will he do with that money? What will he do with his savings? For what is savings? A savings is your excess of income over your expenses. So income minus expenses. If income is greater than expenses, then it results in savings. What do you do with this savings? Now, this savings gets invested. You keep this money in the bank. Now, what the bank will do with this money? Bank will use your money to lend. And one of the issues with Indian economy is that there are plenty of startups, there are plenty of ideas, but the issue is that there is a shortage of capital. And that is what savings does. It bridges the gap of shortage of capital. Because the moment you keep your money in your bank account, or whether you're investing in various avenues of investments, which I don't want to list out, but some of those who are studying finance would have studied this in your paper called Securities Analysis and Portfolio Management, various list of avenues that are available. So you channelize your savings in various avenues of investment, which acts as a source of finance for businesses. So businesses will borrow money from banks. Business will start their business ventures. This will lead to creation of employment, creation of jobs. Or people who get job, they get salary. From that salary, they pay tax. And from business, the income what the business concerns are generating, they will also pay tax. Indirectly, again, tax automatically comes. So therefore, the purpose of deductions, the purpose of government allowing deductions is also to encourage people to save, and saving plays an important role in the economic growth and in the economic progress of an economy. So the all the deductions what you study, the menu of which I just read, there are certain sections which are meant to encourage savings. Now, apart from savings, what are the other reasons for giving deduction to public, to taxpayers? The second reason is the social welfare, the social well-being of the citizens, the social well-being of the country, right? Unfortunately, in India, there is a big disparity between, in terms of income, there's a big disparity. Rich is getting richer, the poor is getting poorer. So there's an economic disparity, right? As a result of this, the weaker section of the society is not able to access certain benefits which the rich are able to access. So government has no option but to bridge this gap to ensure that people get the basic amenities, basic facilities. And we are seeing now in the times of pandemic, what is going on in the economy, right? How India is suffering on account of lack of healthcare infrastructure, right? We know how terribly bad our health infrastructure is. And I don't have to get into this debate or argument. You people are seeing this on the TV, if you're reading this in the newspaper, how we are struggling, right? Second, now you're a privileged section of the society, I would say, because you're attending college in a private institution, you're attending online classes, right? You're getting tuitions using MS Teams. So you have access to education. But what about the people who live in rural areas? How will they access education in these tough times? Where is the internet? Forget about internet. Internet is a luxury for them. Where is the electricity? So education system in India also has its own challenges because it's not equitable. Everybody is not getting access, fair access. So government responsibility is to ensure that all these sections of the society get access to certain basic facilities, which unfortunately is not happening. And we have seen how terribly the government is being exposed on account of pandemic. But despite of this, government continues to spend on various social welfare projects, whether it is setting up government schools, whether it is ensuring free primary education to all the children in India, primary and secondary education, right? So government is spending, but the issue is, again, we as India, we have our own issues. We, despite of all the spending, issues do arise, right? So what happens here is sometimes Government may also involve people like me and you, public, to take part in this socially desirable activity through donations, through contributions, right? So you can also become a part of this noble task of providing social welfare to citizens. So Government of India has established various kind of funds for which you can claim deduction. On the other hand, the Government of India also gets money from public, which gets spent on again socially desirable activities or social activities. In fact, last year the Government of India came up with an exclusive fund called PM Cares Fund. Now, how caring was this PM Care Fund? What happened to this PM Care Fund? How the money was spent? Where it got spent? For that, even the media is trying to find the answer at the moment, but unfortunately they are not able to get it. But anyways, PM Care Fund was established to fight the devastation caused by the coronavirus pandemic. Likewise, we have various kind of funds established for various purposes. Swachh Ganga Fund, Swachh Bharat Fund, Prime Minister's National Relief Fund, Prime Minister's Drought Relief Fund. So under ATG, you have a menu of funds which has more than 30 categories of funds. Anyways, I'll give you that menu. Not now. I don't want to scare you by giving the entire menu at the moment. So when we discuss ATG, we will probably go through all the funds and donations which are approved by government, for which you get tax benefit and Government of India gets the money so that it can be spent on socially desirable activities. In fact, I'm not sure if you people are aware that St. Joseph's College has also decided to take part in this cause of welfare in these tough times, and it has decided to set up 100-bed hospital in your college canteen. So your college canteen has been converted into a 100-bedded medical center. It will be soon, all the facilities will come. Right now, only the beds are being put up, but very soon all the other facilities will come. So now St. Joseph's institutions, they are contributing money for this. They're also requesting the alumni members to also contribute. And they're also requesting general public also to contribute for this cause, for which they have given the account number, and they've also taken the permission of Commissioner of Income Tax to consider this as a fund, approved fund for tax deduction. So what it means is, if I give my, let's say most of the teachers, we are also taking part in this noble cause. We are giving our salary for this purpose. So most of us would end up contributing our 3-4 days salary. Now, in case if we are contributing our 3-4 days salary for St. Joseph's COVID Relief Fund, this fund is approved by Commissioner of Income Tax. So we can also claim deduction under Section 80G. Now, the entire money is going again for public welfare. So the whole purpose of giving deduction, one I've already identified, to encourage savings. Second, to promote social welfare, to spend the money on socially desirable activities. Now, the third reason of these deduction is also help certain underprivileged sections of the society. So here one of the category which is being identified as physically disabled persons. So to take care of them, again, you need funds. So Government of India has also identified this also as one of the reason for which people can claim deduction if they are spending money on this purpose. So these are the main three reasons. And of course, the fourth reason, I would say certain deductions which are personal in nature is also being taken care. So there are certain personal deductions which the government of India has identified and communicated by the income tax department. So if you have certain personal expenditure, that can also be claimed as deduction. But these are the three broader categories. So now all the deductions what you study from 80C to 80G can be categorized under these three headings. Now, before we see the categorization, let us quickly do a comparison between deduction and exemption. So you should know what's the difference, because sometimes you get confused. Okay, what's deduction? What's exemption? So here are some good points are being identified by me. First, the objective of deduction we have already gone through: to promote savings, to encourage socially desirable activity, to help the disabled people. But the objective of exemption is to boost a particular section. Boost a particular section. Now, when we say boost a particular section, it means to encourage a particular sector, encourage a particular activity. For example, export-oriented companies do enjoy a lot of exemption, which means the profits what they earn, they don't end up paying taxes on them for years. So government wants to promote a certain industry for which it is saying, okay, you start an export oriented company, we will not tax you for 10 years, tax holiday. You invest your hard-earned savings in public savings schemes under Government of India, you don't have to pay any tax on the income what you earn from them. So here the objective is promotion. Here the objective is to boost certain sector of business or certain activity. So the nature of tax planning, here it is in the form of concession. On the other hand, here it is in the form of relaxation. Outcome of income earned, the income is tax deductible, and here it is tax. You know what it means is that all the deductions first have to be included in the income, and later they have to be claimed as deduction from GTI. But that's not the case in case of exempted incomes. In case of exempted incomes, you don't have to include the income in the list of incomes what you have earned. You don't even have to include, whereas for deduction, first you have to include, then you have to claim deduction. Here, don't even bother to include itself because they're taxable. Deductions are allowed to specific persons, whereas exemption is available for all category of persons. Now the charging sections, what you're studying, as I already identified and mentioned it to you, deductions are from section 80C to 80U. On the other hand, exemptions are specified under section 10. So these are some points which I wanted to communicate to you to help you understand what's the difference between deduction and exemption. Now let's move on to the various deductions that you would be studying. This is like a curtain riser, right? So don't get panicked by looking at all these sections. As I already mentioned, it is slightly challenging, but you will understand slowly, right? Slow and steady wins the race. So you will slowly understand all these sections one by one. Okay, so all these sections from 80C to 80U are being classified into 4 segments. There is no such classification by Income Tax Department. There is no such classification in any textbook available in the market. This classification is done by me to help you understand. Simple. So that you remember which section promotes what objective. So as you can see here, section 80C, 80CCG which is being removed now. It's not there at the moment for your batch. Then why am I keeping this? Okay, let me keep this, but later let's discuss that. So 80 TTA, 80 triple C, 80 CCD clause 1, 80 CCD clause 2. These are the deductions that promotes investments and social security. I do mention that there are certain deductions which allows you to claim certain personal expenses, and these deductions are these are the sections that allows you to deduct certain personal expenditure. What are these personal expenditure? We will discuss when we go through each section. ATC, ATE, ATGG. Now, these sections are the sections which are in the limelight at the moment because of the pandemic situation. Because all these sections are sections that allows an individual to claim deductions for all that money he has spent, he has flown like water on healthcare. ATD, ATDD, ATDDB, ATU. For socially desirable activities, these are the three sections. And sections pertaining to royalty on intellectual property, you have only two, RRB and QQB. Now let's go through each of this category. It might not be possible for us to forget about all this category. We might not be able to complete just ATC in today's class because ATC is a very comprehensive section which has many things in it. So probably we will try to cover ATC and wind up today's class and perhaps discuss more in the coming classes. Okay. Now, in the beginning, I told you when I started this that there is a connection between these two chapters, and that's the reason I have clubbed them. The connection is simple. After calculating GTI, what do? You apply deductions. The moment you apply deductions, the outcome is total income. On total income, you calculate the tax. Simple. So what we do here, we learn deductions. We apply them in the next chapter. What we will do is we will learn deduction, immediately we will apply. Again, we will learn certain deductions, again we will immediately apply. So that's the reason I've clubbed both the chapters so that you learn deductions, immediately try to apply them and learn how to calculate the tax. So that's the reason these two chapters are being clubbed so that you understand the concepts in a better way. Okay, so let's go to ATC and see what is there in ATC. So ATC includes three broader categories of deductions. The first category pertains to investments. The second category pertains to insurance. The third category pertains to expenditure. Again, this categorization is not done by Income Tax Department, neither it is done by any author of any textbook. I have done it so that you can understand this in a better way. So ATC, instead of, imagine I just hide this, right? And I just read out one by one all this randomly. Then what will happen? Your mind will definitely get stressed. But when I tell you, okay, these are the investments, this is the insurance, this is the expenditure, it becomes easier for you to retain in your memory. And you know, income tax is a subject that demands you to retain things in your mind. So if you don't do proper presentation of the subject, your mind will get blown away. It is already blown away by staying at home and looking at this situation which is prevailing now. So, right, investments. So where should you invest to get deduction under section ATC? The answer is, this is the 8 areas where you can invest. This is just an indicative list which is being prepared from the viewpoint of examination. Of course, this list is little more lengthier. Okay, so this is not a comprehensive list, just an indicative list from the viewpoint of examination. So if you want to claim deduction, invest in public provident fund, recognized provident fund, statutory provident fund, right? Recognized provident fund and statutory provident fund is offered by your employer. Public provident fund, you can invest on your own. Subscription to National Savings Certificate, again under Government of India. This is offered by Post Office and nationalized banks. You can also claim deduction when you do fixed deposits. I go and keep the money 10 lakhs in the bank account. The 10 lakh what I've kept can be claimed as deduction from my total income. So what it means is, let's say my total income is 20 lakh rupees. Okay. But I have deposited 10 lakh rupees where in FD, fixed deposit. Now what will happen? The government says, okay, if you deposit money in fixed deposit schemes, you're entitled to claim deduction. Since I have deposited 10 lakh, now my total income will be 10 lakhs. Pay tax on 10 lakhs. So in this way, this 10 lakh rupees is helping me because I've claimed this as deduction and my tax liability is coming down. But in case of fixed deposit, the rule is that you have to keep the deposit for at least 5 years, not less than this. If you're keeping less than this, then you're not qualified for deduction. But yes, of course, you have the option to keep fixed deposit even for 7 days. Banks do offer fixed deposit ranging from 7 days, starting from 7 days. But in order to claim deduction, the deposit lock-in period should be 5 years or more. Likewise, if you're subscribing to notified units of mutual funds, which is issued by private mutual fund companies, or it can be UTI, or if you're investing your money in equity linked saving schemes, which is again a kind of a mutual fund, or if you are keeping money in Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana account, or if you're depositing money under senior saving schemes offered by post offices, or if you're purchasing the bonds of NABARD, all these 8 investments will help you in claiming deduction under Section 80C. Now, second category is insurance. Life insurance, specifically life insurance. And income tax department is also specific about whose life insurance premium you should pay to claim deduction. The answer is SSC, self, spouse and children. If you're paying life insurance premium for your dad, your mom, your ex-relative, Y relative, you can't claim deduction. So the amount of insurance, what you pay towards the life insurance premium for the policy of self, spouse and children is entitled for deduction under Section 80C. How can you claim the deduction? For the previous ones, there is no formula to claim deduction. But for insurance, there's a formula. The formula is simple. You have to compare 2 things. Actual premium paid or 10% of sum assured, whichever is less. Now, what is sum assured? As a student of commerce, you should know. Some of them here are experts who are studying banking and insurance. So they would be knowing much better than me, right? So when we say sum assured, it is the amount which the insurance company will give upon occurrence of uncertain event or upon completion of the term of the insurance. So you take 10% of that, compare the premium amount, take whichever is less, and that amount is entitled for deduction from GTI under Section 80C. Now for policies which are issued before April 2012, instead of 10% of sum assured, you have to take 20% of sum assured. Now certain deductions for expenditure X allowed under Section 80C includes home loan principal repayment. Now you have to be a little attentive here. There are 2 things. One is the installment payment. Second one is interest payment. This is not interest on home loan. This is principal repayment of home loan. Interest on home loan is eligible for deduction under Section 24 subsection B, which you have already studied under the head income from house property, and I am sure by now you would have forgotten it. So home loan principal repayment, expense on property registration, tuition fee paid to educate maximum 2 children. So these are the 3 categories of deductions that are allowed under Section 80C, and the maximum amount of deduction one can claim under Section 80C cannot exceed more than 1,50,000. So government has put up a limit also as to how much exemption you can claim. And the answer is 1,50,000. Okay, so with this, we will conclude today's class. I have some other classes also lined up now. So any question?